Frederick here. So this is the last segment of this piece, Smoking in an Alley Behind a Busy Theater. If you haven't seen the first several episodes, be sure to go back and check those out. You can see how the whole track came together right from the beginning. So with that, let's get into Nuendo and go through the arrangement. So if we look here in Nuendo, you can basically see how everything came together. I basically just went through and edited out some of the Vermona parts. If you go back and watch the video where we recorded the Vermona DRM3, and then the drums, the acoustic drums, video also of that where we recorded all this, I left those all the way through, and there really wasn't a whole lot of mixing. We could kind of start here. We've got the kick panned in the middle. If we see Spectre here, the kick is in the middle. Snare, we're basically doing drummer's perspective, so the snare is panned off to the left a little bit. The tom is more to the left even, and the floor tom is to the right, and then we've got our stereo overheads. And it's just a really natural kind of drum sound. If we listen here, just do a little of this, the drums only. Yeah, so the drums are just played really loose and free. Sometimes, even though the piece is in tempo, the drums are just kind of playing more at a chosen rate of speed as opposed to playing the tempo. And because it's that kind of approach, the drums are really, I just want a very natural sound. I just want the drums to basically sound the way they are. The bass drum is wide open. There's nothing in there. There's nothing on the heads. So it's got a really long sustain. And to make that work with the electronic drums, we kept the electronic drum machine kick drum to be really short. So if we put the two things together, you can see. So the trick there was really just making those two elements kind of fit together without being too much. The overall piece is kind of busy. It's a very dense mix. There's a lot going on. But so far as the drums, maybe the most difficult or challenging part is keeping the kick drum, the sub bass part, and then the drum set kick drum, making all that work together, because there's a lot of low end happening with this. And the Vermona electronic kick drum has got that nice clicky thing on the top end of it, so that differentiates the attack from the other parts. So then one of the other elements that we used, and we went through this in another video, was we took the drum parts and we converted those audio recordings to MIDI using just the built-in features of Nuendo. Cubase has it too, the audio to MIDI. And then we took those parts and generated some other MIDI parts. So then, for example, this Zebra 2 bass part here, which goes along with So there's a lot of low end coming through all of that. Now altogether, that sounds like a lot. But if we put the drums in and the drum set in, you can see how they fit together. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of a play through of everything to get a sense of how it all goes together. Okay, so it goes on like that. Those are basically two A sections, and just to give a sense here of how the MIDI works with the audio to MIDI. If we look here at this, so that you know where this audio is coming from, this audio here in the bass that we played, this comes from this MIDI part here. And it's all on B. It's just a static B note that follows the rhythm of the acoustic drums. And it's in B because the mode that we chose was B Locrian. And that kind of gives us a tonal center for all the other stuff that's moving around. And these parts up here, even though it says MIDI here in this folder, if you go back and check the segment where we recorded the modular synth, that's where these come from. And so this is just the audio from Elements, Mutable Instruments Elements. It sounds like this. And it's going through the big sky, the Strymon big sky, and the timeline delay. And all we really have is just a little bit of 80 hertz roll off. At 12 dB per octave, so it's pretty gentle, and there's not a whole lot going on. Then we've got our rings going through the monsoon, which is like a clouds type module. We have this rings panned to the left. We have the elements in the center, and then plots. To the right. Same kind of thing here with a high pass a little bit higher, up to 200 hertz there. And then we've got our plonk through the Rainmaker. And this track down here, this was the stereo mix of all the modular voices. We ended up not really using that, so it's just muted here. And these are all the modulars together. Add in the harp voice. Organ. Lo-fi piano. Rhodes. Okay, so that brings us up to the bridge. That's kind of like the A section, and then the A and A prime section, so like AA, and then we get to a contrasting section, which is the bridge here. And in this section, we did the same concept of taking the audio to MIDI, audio from the busy drums, the free drums, and take each voice of that and create a MIDI track from that, and then arrange that into something that ends up looking like this. We moved that to 1, 2, 3 instances, I think, of Zebra. And then up here, we took this Doper A100 oscillator voice, and it came out like this. The other Doper oscillator is doing a kind of pad under there, and it's kind of pitchy, but it's nice because with the other virtual instruments like this Diva, the UHE Diva, when you combine these two, so the other Doper oscillator sounds like. It's a little pitchy. So then what we did was on the Diva, I put the RC20 retro color on here and used a little of the noise, the vinyl noise, and then mostly this here, the wobble part. Turned the rate down pretty low, only used the wow, no flutter, and put the flux up to about a little less than midway, full mix, and turned that up a little bit of the tube saturation and distortion on there, and some of the tape wear all the way to the side here, a little bit of the dropouts, and left the rate up pretty far. You hear the noise? Other instance of Zebra here and here, and the Zebra bass. And then this is virtual instrument that comes from, where does this come from? Yeah, Absinthe. It's a patch called Lonely Orbit in Absinthe 5 that I like. And this FM8 soft clarinet that comes from the also the native instruments, but this one's FM8, and so these sound like this. It's a lonely orbit here. You can hear it a little louder. So then when you add the drums, the freely played drums into it, yeah, so then that's the bridge. So then we come back out of the bridge with a recapitulation of the final A section, the last A. So it's like a AABA form, like you have in a lot of things. Yeah, so I just noticed something here about how the sub bass is reacting with the bass drum and everything else on this last A section, and it kind of made me think about well, first, if we go back here and look at this A section, this is the sub bass that I'm talking about here. The sound that is like it's like this. Comes from the Vermona DRM3, and here on this A section, if we look at what what's going on here. I edited out like every other one. So the ones that come on the downbeat, it was just too much. Everything's building up, and it was like, it was not cool. So what we did was just take every other one out. So this way, it sounds like. That one, that's the one that's too much every time. That one's cool. But when the piano does that low, the low B in the left hand, it's too much. So I just noticed that in this last A section, we had the same kind of thing. In the bridge, everything's cool with that. It's all right. Here. Those are all, I like those. But over here, then when we come back around to the last A, it's the ones on those beats. It's too much. That's cool. So what I'm gonna do here is just go into this and do the same thing, and you can kind of see how we do it. And actually, this first one, I don't like this so much either. So we'll take that out. And I've already checked this out. So like if you zoom in, you can see here that we can cut right on the measure and not worry about the transient there. So it doesn't look like it when you're not zoomed right in, but we can. So chop these up. And if you guys know a function in Cubase Nuendo like you have in Pro Tools, tab to transient, let me know in the comments below, because that would be useful right now. Okay. All right, we're going to mute this one. Now, I think the reason that all of these were muted throughout here is because it was clashing too much here where we bring in the Zebra sub bass. So you can see, if we look here, this is where the Zebra audio to MIDI sub bass business starts happening. And I just took out all of these in here, maybe before too. I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to go with it, whatever we did before. At this point, with the arrangement and the mix and everything, the more I can take out and pare it down, the better. So, which, just as working on this, it made me think of something I just recently saw. It was an interview with the great mix engineer Andrew Sheps, and he was talking about how, if you don't know Andrew Sheps, go check out Andrew Sheps because he's great. He knows what to do. But he was talking about how mixing is more difficult for him these days than it used to be because of so many of the projects that he gets. You know, people start mixing like right away. Like as soon as you start making the track, you kind of start mixing it. And that's true. That's definitely true of all this. Like, you know, right away you start to put compressors on or EQs or various processes, and then all of that builds up throughout the whole thing. And so he was saying when he gets a project, it's like, well, it's kind of all the stuff is baked in. It's all like in there, and you know, it's like you start pulling things apart, trying to mix things and redo things, and everything starts to fall apart because it's all been put together in such a way that is, you know, everything relies on everything else. And that's kind of true of a lot of my stuff as well, I feel like. The one thing that I try to do, if we can go ahead and look at this now, I was going to do it later, but we'll go ahead and look now. Save that edit that we did here because that's useful, helpful. There's not a whole lot on the sub mixes here. Basically on the drums we've got just a little EQ, taking out some 350 here for a little of the boxiness, and then just a high pass, and then rolling off the top around somewhere up there. And then we have tape machine on here, the Studer, that seems to love to insert itself into the workflow, as UAD seems to like to do these days. But it's nice. It sounds really good. And then an SSL style compressor from Brainworks. And we've got it on a ratio of 4:1 with the slowest attack that we can do to let the transients come through, the fastest release. And if we look, we're only getting I just want a couple of dB of compression coming through. I think that's what we have. Yeah, not a whole lot. Just a little. So maybe up to like 4 dB in the biggest parts here. Two to 4 dB, not a whole lot. So that's what's on the drum bus. And if we look at the percussion bus, there's nothing on there except just a EQ. A lot on the synth bus, just EQ here. Not doing a whole lot. So I try to keep it that way as the mix is going through without putting a whole lot of things on there. On our main mix bus, our sub mix bus, all we have currently, this is just a visualization meter. So that's obviously not doing anything. And We've got our ozone EQ that's just rolling off 32 on the low end and 16 on the top, and nothing in the middle here. I'm going to save that all for the mastering part. And then at the bottom, to finish it off, we've just got the ozone maximizer, the limiter, and we've got it set to the modern algorithm. And it's really not doing anything other than giving us a ceiling of -2. We've got the threshold up there to match it, so it's not giving any kind of a level boost. We're not boosting anything. We're just like making sure that nothing goes, we don't get any overs. And it's not really getting close to it anyway, so there's not a whole lot going on the mix bus currently, and that's what I would like to do, so that we can have some room later to, if it goes in with other tracks, we've got some room to work. And also the other thing would be that a track like this, it should just kind of sound as natural as possible without a lot of heavy compression and a lot of stuff going on, a wide dynamic range and things like this. So that's what we have there. Just to go in and play into the bridge one time, so you get a sense of that. And then we're back into the last day. So that's how it goes. Just before we go print this out and then take it over to Sequoia to do a quick in-the-box mastering, there was one thing that I heard early on somewhere. I should have made a note of it, but there was somewhere where the snare drum seemed to be getting in the way of something. Let's listen back here. Definitely this one I don't like. Some of the others too. This one. See if that's better. So to show you one other thing about how, I mean, you can go back and look at the tracking the drums video. There's one thing that happens here, but this is how I do it. There's one thing that happens here that you hear in the cymbals with the overheads that isn't sounding quite right. If we look here, maybe let's listen. That one, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There's something about the way it jumps out in the mix doesn't sound so great to me. So what I would do, and I'm pretty sure it's happening in the overheads, if we mute the overheads and listen just from here real quick. Yeah, that part there is just kind of loud when you've got the overheads in there. Somehow that sticks out because it's on the hi-hat. If you listen to the drum video, tracking the drums, so this is exactly the kind of thing where I talk about, like, I stopped micing the hi-hat because the hi-hat's loud anyway. Anytime you play the hi-hat, I just found personally that every time I would mic the hi-hat, I ended up just muting it, like taking that whole thing out. And I just stopped micing the hi-hat because you get plenty of it. It really, I use pretty heavy cymbals, and I use like the Tony Williams kind of thing of putting the heavier bottom cymbal on the top and the top cymbal on the bottom. And then when you play it with the foot and you get the chick, it cuts through really well, and you don't have to play it hard to really make it speak. But then when you play it with sticks, it really comes out there. So what I would do is switch to my pen tool here and just come in here. And I like this way better than trying to clip gain it, cut it out, and definitely better than like trying to do it in a compressor, like working the compressor to clamp down more. This sounds much more transparent. And I think we can just pull it down like this, a couple of dB, and it should be good. Let's see. Yeah, that's better already. We'll just take this out here. Yep, all right. Yeah, so I think that does it for most of this. There might be a couple more of those snare drum hits we'll look at again, but it will be the same thing, just basically chop them out where they clash. And we're going to bounce this out and bring it over to Sequoia and do the mastering there. Okay, all right. All right, so we've got the track here bounced out from Nuendo, and I do everything at 24/48, 24 bit 48 sample rate. It, to me, is kind of a nice in between. 24-bit is a pretty substantial increase in fidelity from 16-bit. And 48 is kind of a nice in-between spot. You could go 24, 40, 44.1. That's okay too. I don't really hear a whole lot of sonic gain in going past 48. Some people might, but what I've found is that for what I'm gaining in that, if anything that I can really tell, it just slows down the computer a lot. And it just makes it makes the storage of everything more difficult, and I just don't feel like I'm really getting all that much out of it. I'm pretty happy with 24/48, to be honest. So we're going to open Sequoia here. And we'll go to multi-track project. We're going to use the template of the 2-track CD master. We're going to name it the same as the track. Sample rate is already here, and this gives us a automatic subdirectory. We'll go here. It's off. We're going to keep it with 2 tracks there. Since it's only the 1 track, we could just do 1, but do it like this for now. And we'll go here to select. And we're going to have all of these checked. Copy project directory. Everything. And there it is. We'll do one thing just to check out here in Sequoia, make sure we're all go. We're going to put snap to objects on, even though we just have the 1. And we'll auto crossfade. Why not? CD arrangement mode. Yes. And that should be good. Okay, so just a couple of things here that we have done. If we play the track now, this first plugin here, pay no attention to that. That is just the that's the plugin to go send the audio to OBS for the screen capture. And then I have the BX meter here. I like this BX meter because it's just really simple and clear. You can see your RMS here, which I still use RMS a lot. I understand it well so far as how I'm gonna think of the overall loudness. And really, maybe the most straightforward terms I can put it is like an RMS of -10. This is kind of when I start to think of like, okay, the track is getting loud, like it's getting up to what you're going to at least want it to be. Because these days, I mean, -10, unless you're really just talking about like classical recordings or maybe jazz music, that's pretty conservative. And if you're not at that, it's probably not going to sound comparable to other tracks that it might be next to. So the RMS makes a lot of sense to me. So if we look here, so you can see it's a very dynamic mix, and you can see just in the waveform. Now, if it were going to go on to something that was more like a classical jazz kind of platform, or if it's going to be like that, or if it's going to go onto vinyl for sure, I think it would be okay just as it is with these kind of dynamics. But I think we can get a little more out of it without killing it. I mean, if we look here at this plug-in here, now I don't just go by this exactly, but it's nice. It's a nice plug-in to be able to look and get a feel of how this would relate to various streaming services and whatnot. So you can see here for like just normal Spotify. There's a lot of room, and that's at with the understanding of like what they like to say, like -14, and then even more dynamic for Apple Music. And really, if you go and look, I've done a big study of like streaming, the dynamic range of a lot of tracks that appear on streaming services, and it's definitely not the -14, the target that you hear a lot. Anyway, you can do your own research on that, but I've looked into it. And I am going to kind of go somewhere in the middle there. Just so it doesn't just sound quiet, basically, when it's played on YouTube or on any of the streaming services. Okay, so how do we start? Get rid of our mixer here. Go over here to the object editor. Now, a couple of ways that we could do it, and it's a nice way to start to get an idea, is if you go here and in this section here and just hit the normalize and see what this comes up with. So you can see it's going to give us 2 dB. And if we go back to, let's undo that. Let's put this back where it was. And let's go back here to our Streamliner. Play. All right, so now if we come over here and we do our normalize, let's compare now. Now, in general, the normalizing of the tracks, I don't rely on that so much, but it's nice to be able to get a sense of how the track compares, like where it's sitting exactly. Like once you hit normalize and you see that we boosted it 2 dB to get to a loudness normalization, it kind of gives you an idea of where of your headroom there. So, get rid of the mixer. First thing that I would put on here would be an EQ. And the one that I like is the isotope one. The ozone one. I never use any of these, all this stuff, the nectar things, or any of those. I never use the vintage EQ or any of the vintage stuff, almost never. But I really like just this one, just the basic isotope ozone EQ. I like the digital, so it's not adding any kind of like analog saturation stuff going on here. Keep it at the bottom at 32. And then the top, we're gonna go 16's good, and play here somewhere in the middle. See what this looks like. So right away, once we bring it into Sequoia, you can hear, I mean, it sounds different right away. And there's more, there's something more in the top end, in the cymbals. It's opened up a bit. And it sounds okay as it is now, but I think as we bring the level up, the top end's going to be a little much. So what I want to do first would be to just take this band 7 here and bring this down to maybe about probably somewhere around here, just so that we will be able to have a Baxendall shelf here, and so that we'll be able to bring the top end down a few dB overall. And that's all. I'm not going to make any EQ moves yet, but it's good to have this ready to go. The second thing that I like to do is to go ahead and put another tape saturator on here to give kind of a feeling of like a little bit of tapey sound. And let's see what we got. I like this one, the Studer from UAD. So let's hear that. Now, right away, to my ear, I think we want a tape emulation that's going to be a little less saturated, something that's a little more transparent. So let's move up here to this. If it was going to be something that was more like a rock thing, or music that really lends itself more to like a tape saturation kind of sound, like rock drums or something like that, we might go with one of these other slightly more low fidelity tape emulations. But I want it to be still have a tape sound. In that case, if we were going to do that, we might bring this down to 7.5 and then maybe all the way down here to this, something like that. But let's try it this way and have it at least at yeah, that sounds pretty good. All right, so the next thing that I would do is to bring in an imager to just so that we can kind of shape the stereo image of overall sound field. And the one that I like for this also is the Ozone Imager. And I like to start with this preset here that is Modern Width, just basically because it kind of gets everything going how I like. And so because we have the Zebra doing that really busy synth bass thing that's hooked up with the bass drum and everything, that really, because it's so subby, that really and then there's the sub part coming from the Vermona, that should really come through as mono. Like sub frequencies that low being stereo are going to get really weird. Furthermore, many like sound systems where this kind of sub sound would be realized anyway are going to come through as mono. It's not a dance track. That's definitely true in dance music, where like in any kind of dance club with all those sub frequencies, all those systems are in mono. So having the bass, subby bass and stereo is really asking for problems. And also if you want to cut vinyl, sub bass like that being in mono is super important, which is what we can do with this plugin here. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit higher. This is our lowest frequency here. You can hear. Yeah, at least all that stuff down there in mono for sure. So we can push this even more to mono. And our next band here, that we're just going to leave in the middle there. That stuff doesn't need to go anywhere else. Our upper frequencies here, these we can push out to the side. Not go crazy with it, because you can get some problems. All right. And then let's listen to this middle band here. All right. Now, the other thing that I like about this plugin is to solo these bands like this, you can kind of already get a sense of like there's some harshness in this frequency band of the track, and with everything else in there and the bass, it might be okay. But if we were going to focus in on some frequencies that are a little abrasive, we kind of going to know now this is sort of where that's going to live, because everything else is clearly not there. So let's listen to it all together with the imager. And one thing that I'm hearing here, because it's so busy, I think we're going to leave this middle band. We're not going to push this out. If things start to get a little weird with this kind of music, if you start to open it up like that. Let's listen again. right, that seems pretty good. Let's go back to our mixer and add. All right, so what I want to look at is my correlation meter here, just to see where we're at. Yeah, so that's all good. If it had been that our phase was coming down here into the red, then we would probably need to address some of the imaging stuff that we had done, or even the mix, if it was all out of whack, but it's not. The one other thing that I like to do here, before we put away the imager, is then just to check it in mono. So you can hear there's definitely a difference between the mono mix. I don't really care. I'm not so concerned about the mono. I mean, mono doesn't mean a whole lot to me so far as like keeping it, making sure that everything is able to be played back perfectly in mono. The only thing that I wouldn't want to happen would be if there's an important like melody line and you all of a sudden go to mono and it completely disappears. That would be a problem. Maybe. But it's fine. What we're losing in mono is well worth the stereo image that we have, in my opinion. So, we can move on. So because I know I'm going to want a limiter here at the very end, and we're going to get a little bit of gain out of the whole track, and I can tell that there's some frequencies that we're going to want to address once we push everything into the limiter, even just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add a dynamic EQ. I like this one from Ozone as well. So we're going to put this in here, and then I'm going to bypass this, and I'm going to use also another plugin that's really like almost like magic, is from Oak Sound, but we're gonna turn this one off now also, and just going to take this, bring this back down. But it's there later when we will need it. And the dynamic EQ, we're going to put that on the digital as well. Next thing I want in here would be our Oxford inflator. We're going to use our band split here to keep it a little cleaner in the mid-range. And I think I am going to use a compressor on here, and the one that I want would be from brain works, I think. That's what I like. This one. Elysia Alpha, I think. I guess that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. And what I like to do here is, where is it? Where's the one I like? This one. Now, upward leveling. And right away, what I want to do is to take the gain. It gives you a lot of gain on there. I'm going to take that all the way down so that it's not giving any gain. And then we're going to check it here somewhere in the busier section and see where our threshold is at. Because I only want a couple of dB. So right away, we've got way too much. All right, I'm going to leave that as is, but what I want to do is to move the compressor before the inflator. And I think also we'll move the compressor before our dynamic EQs. All right, and then we're just going to have one last thing here, which would be our limiter. And the one that I like, you guessed it, until I find something better, it's going to be the Ozone 8 Maximizer. And I like this algorithm here, the IRC4 Modern. I'm going to bring our, because this is going to go to YouTube, I'm going to bring the ceiling down to at least -1. And we're going to start here, bring our threshold up here to -1 so that we're level matched, so we're not getting any gain out of the compressor, and see where we're at. No gain out of the limiter, and see where we're at. So we got a lot of room there. Let's give 3 dB. Plenty. Let's go to 4. All right, that's pretty good. One thing that we can do here with the limiter to check everything out is, first of all, go back so that we're matched here at our ceiling, so that our threshold and our ceiling are the same. Listen. And then we're gonna bypass back and forth, and so we shouldn't get any kind of level gain in the limiter, but what we can hear is what the effects the limiter is doing to just the sound quality. And what I'm really listening for is like what's in the top end, like how do the cymbals sound? Is it getting to start to sound kind of dusty up there, or kind of unfocused? Does it sound like you're putting a wet blanket over the top end, or something weird's going on with the high frequencies, or that you're losing too much in the high frequencies? It should be very subtle, and if we level match, then we can really just listen for the sonics of what the limiter is doing to it without being confused by the gain. Okay, here we go. All right, that's okay. So let's go back to our threshold of -4. And let's see what's happening here with our RMS now. All right, so we can see here we're kind of getting into like -9, -10, -9. So like I said before, that in my mind, this is like when I say, okay, we're getting up there, we're getting loud. So what I think I want to do is to get more gain from, like, say, the inflator and maybe the compressor, and that way we're not having to do so much work with the limiter pushing into it. So let's do that. Basically what I'm going to do is just to go in and pull the threshold back down to say just like -2. So take 2 dB off of that, and then because we didn't add any gain in our compressor, let's open this up and All right, so I think that's so far as a level. I think for what I'm looking for out of this track, which is not, you know, like pop music or something like that, but it's also not just like straight classical music or jazz music. I think the level that we've got there is pretty decent. It's loud enough that it's not going to sound weird or just low on streaming services or YouTube or something like this. But it's not, you know, like so in your face like a super loud pop music or dance music or something like this. The one thing that we do have is that when we push into the limiters and the compressors, the top end, like I said, starts to stick out a little bit. So that's why we have these EQs ready to go. So let's start just with that Baxendale shelf up here and bring this down just like maybe 3 dB. And let's pull it back to 3K. So right in there in this spot of the track, the cymbals get very dynamic. The one other thing that I feel like I want to do would be to take down a little bit of maybe 250, which is always a good roll-off frequency. Maybe just 2 dB. There, we need to look at that, see what we can do there. We're going to start with our dynamic EQ. So we've set this to digital, and we're going to be somewhere in the middle here, or maybe up in like the 3K, the presence band, somewhere around in here, between here. There's also a thing where I play the bell that you can kind of hear that pokes out a little bit. First of all, just take the high end here and pull this back to say here as well, and just take all of it down a little bit. And we'll bring in our oak sound as well. That's the cymbal part there, the bell right there. So I think that's helpful. Right there, that's where those spots. Let's make our cue a little bigger for this. Okay, that's nice. I think what we can actually do, though, is to go back to just our static equalizer, and in that top high shelf, maybe bring this down more. Let's see, that seems pretty harsh, but it's very subtle with this. It's only 60 dB. All right, I think that sounds pretty good for a first pass. So basically what I would do at this point is I will bounce this out and I'll listen to it in a few different places on some headphones in the car, maybe a different set of speakers on a laptop, and if there are any further revisions to refine it, then I'll just come back and it'll go the same way. So I think we can call this one done. I think that's basically it. And like I said many times, if you haven't watched the earlier segments of making the track, go back and check those out, because we go from start to finish all the way through, and you can see how we got here. We'll call this one done. I think that about does it. As always, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the bell for notifications. Follow me on Instagram, all the things. And if you really liked it and you found this content useful, consider joining me over at my Patreon. Support there is most appreciated. It helps me to keep making this content. But mostly, just thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. All right. You know what? One last thing. We've got to do something a little bit to the low end here. And the way that I'm gonna handle that is just here on this band. We're gonna come down here to 50 hertz. We're gonna do a quick. We're gonna get the tightest Q that we can get, and we're gonna gain this down just to take a little bit of the low end out because I think it's a little boomy. And in addition to that, we can also take our dynamic EQ and same kind of deal. Go to this first band, proportional Q, 50 hertz. Gain this down, tighter Q. And I think that's going to help us out a lot. Let's listen now.